Hey everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8, actually 7 now, who live off-grid in Australia. It is food prep planning, preservation type video time. So I did my monthly grocery haul, which was the previous video to this, and now I have to work on getting it all sorted. Now the problem was that my timing was a little bit off. Because I came back on a Sunday evening, it's thrown all my everything out because the first few days back were Monday, Tuesday, we've had schoolwork and everything else to do as well. So I'm a bit behind. So the kids yesterday or the day before cut up all the berries for me. All the strawberries got put in the freezer, all the raspberries got put in the freezer. They've been frozen, flash frozen, and then put in Ziploc bags. And the boys also did all the red finger grapes and round grapes that were all those surplus extras that I had just loose in the bags. They ate a whole bunch of them, but then the rest of them got frozen. So they will eat those straight from the freezer as is, or we can turn them into a grape jelly later, or the berries can be turned into jam, in smoothies, whatever, but they're all in the freezer now. So I'm only just getting to doing everything else. So I've got to do, first up, I've noticed that the rock melons have been left out of the fridge and are starting to get some spots, so I'm going to do those. And then after that, I'm going to get started on the vegetables. So let's get started. All right, so the rock melons were really cheap because they were very ripe. So I've come out, I'm going to do the veggies, but I've come out to notice that some of these rock melons really need working on now. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to throw them on trays to go in the freezer. We'll use it in anything that we use frozen fruit in. It's not ideal, but we'll make it work. So all I'm going to do is cut it, peel it, and put it into chunks to freeze, and whether we use it in, I don't know, creamies, smoothies, or they just eat it straight out of the freezer frozen. They have a tendency to be happy to eat most fruit straight out of the freezer the same way they'd eat it fresh, so that works for me because it means that we can make it last for longer, but they still get all the goodness of eating just the straight fruit. So I'm just going to go through and carve up any that, the rest of them, see what needs to be turfed to the animals and what can be frozen, and then get that all in there. So I managed to fit 2 whole rock melon on each tray, so we're just going to get these into the chest freezer to freeze up. This will predominantly just be eaten straight out of the freezer as frozen fruit. I don't imagine it would be real great in smoothies or anything, but I suppose a fruit sorbet or something maybe, but the kids will probably just eat this straight out of the freezer just as chunks of fruit. All right, rock melon's done. Let's get started on the cauliflower. Again, this hasn't been in the fridge yet, so all the leaves and everything are starting to get a bit discolored, but they have been protecting the insides, and that is the main thing. The pigs will adore all these leaves, so I should grab a big bucket to put these in. I have my various different, let me turn you slightly. Various different veggie containers. Some of these are from Amazon, some are from Kmart, and some are Tupperware. I use whatever I have. I have tried investing in more at times, but I find that we just suck at keeping things in good condition and stored, and a lot of that is the way the kitchen is and the outdoor storage and everything else. Until the kitchen's redone and we have maybe a walk-in pantry or something like that, lids don't stay with it. Nothing stays super clean. We had to just wash all these before we could use them now. And I don't know how I'm going to work it eventually, but for the moment, this is what we're doing. Now, I do need some paper towel to put in the bottom of these. Otherwise, I find that everything on the bottom gets discolored. So let me find the paper towel I bought. Next on my 3D printing checklist should be a fancy paper towel holder for myself, I think. So we just put a layer in there, and then we just put the veggies in, and I'm not cutting it up small because doesn't need to. It's just I use it however I use it. So all I'm doing is cutting the main parts of the green off, any scraps that are just a little bit too far gone as well, and then in half, sort of a sometimes quarter if it's a bigger piece, just so I can fit more into the containers, and then all we do is just load them up and we tend to gorge. I've actually got plenty of cauliflower rice still in the freezer from last month when I bought the box and turned most of it into cauliflower rice. We didn't use it as much as I thought we would because we just ate a lot of meat because Darryl was doing mostly carnivore, and if I wasn't cooking something that used it, then he didn't even think about it. He would just come out and cook steak, and that was fine. And we had that bulk meat order, so we ate a lot of steak. So this month we need to work through a lot of the chicken and stuff too. So probably not tonight. I'll probably do pork belly tonight actually because it needs to be used, but I might do green curry tomorrow night, and we use lots of broccoli and cauliflower in that. As much as the pigs will love this, it is a bit of a pity that I let it get as bad as it did, because normally I would use most of these for stir fry, but they're all pretty wilted and yellowing, so the pigs will definitely enjoy them, but it is a bit of a bummer. Not that we don't have enough of greens and veggies to use for stir fry, but I didn't buy any like beans or spinach or anything like that this month, so this could have been a good, use of that. But as I said, the pigs will enjoy it. So I managed to fit 5 heads, I think, between these 2 containers. So there's still 3 in the box, but I was going to, I regularly, when I do my fruit and veg, I buy enough that I can set up a box or 2 for my neighbour to buy cheap off me. And part of that's because we just don't have storage, but also because it's wonderful to be able to give her the opportunity to get the stuff cheap as well, because fruit and veg is just so expensive out here. So I've got these 3 containers here. What I might do is start on the broccoli, fill these with broccoli, and then I'll assess what I've got left and decide. So let me grab the box of broccoli to work on. Now the broccoli comes in a styrofoam box with ice in it, so it actually lasts really well at the moment because it's nice and cool, which is great. So it still looks lovely and green and good. So I'm going to get this into the containers. Now I like to keep all my broccoli stems because they're super tasty and they work really well in stir fries and things like that. Again, I don't have any beans or anything, and it's a similar sort of a texture. If you cut your stalks up nice and fine, you've got the same sort of things like green beans or whatever. So I like to keep all of that. And I just cut the stems in half for ease of placing in the containers, and I trim them if they've got a few tough bits, like sometimes where the stems have been broken off, they go a bit brown or tough, and I might trim those off when I'm going to use them. But in general, I just slice them up really nice and fine, and they're tasty. And we can pack these in fairly well because what we do is there's some paper towel on the bottom like the other one, but also leave the lids open with broccoli so they breathe. If you close the lid, then the gases that they secrete tend to turn it yellow and smelly. So, but if you leave it open, then it's all good. So all I'm going to do is fill all these containers with as much of the broccoli as I can, and then I'll assess what I've got left. We will cook some up tonight, so that stuff obviously doesn't need to go into a container to have with the pork belly, which I don't know what the time is. My watch went flat, and my charging cord, which is like a proprietary cord for Garmin, snapped. So I've had to order a replacement cord, but until that time I just don't have a watch, and it took me ages to get used to wearing a watch and to be able to look at it for the time instead of my phone. And now every time I want to look at the time, I look at my watch, except I don't have a watch anymore. It's very annoying. But anyway, so I don't know what time it is. What time is it? It is 2:15. So by another half an hour probably I want to start that pork belly, because I like to give it a really fast roaring heat initially to crisp up the skin, but then I like to slow cook the rest of it for a couple of hours. So it needs to go in the oven fairly early for that to happen. So I'm going to keep on going with the broccoli, and then I'll get started on that. All right, so I've got this container which is over full because I'm going to use half of that for dinner tonight, and these 3 containers of the fridge containers as well. Some of the lids aren't sitting very close, but it doesn't matter because, as I said, broccoli, you don't want it sealed anyway. And then I've got these of cauliflower. Again, I'll use most of this tonight, and a spare container here that you want open to allow to breathe. So it has a valve on it because it's Tupperware, so you want it on the open setting. So that is mostly sorted. I'm just going to sort the rest into a box for the neighbour. We've got the styrofoam box that's chilled, so I'll probably put it all in there for her, just empty any excess water out. And then now I need to figure out, there's a few other things that need to be done. Let me figure out what needs to be done most urgently. The broccoli and the cauliflower are in the fridge. Now I'm getting the pork belly out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this. I may not need to cut it in half. Actually, it should fit in that in one of these trays. I thought it was going to be too wide, but it should be fine. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to pat it dry. It doesn't appear to have any scoring on it, which is unusual, but we're going to create some scoring. I might just quickly sharpen my knife. You finished the maths one, didn't you? Did you finish the English one yesterday as well?
Yeah, both the tests were done. Yeah. I was thinking about 12 tables, and if you times 12 by 8, you just have to times 12 by 10 would be 80. Well,
yep.
8 by 10 would be 80, and then 8 plus 8 is 16, so it'd be 96.
Yep, that's right. That's how you can do most timetables.
And then 11 timetables is just times it by 10 and then grab
the extra.
Times 12.
Yep.
Once.
All right, so I've got the oven preheating to top temperature. I've just scored the pork and I'm just going to lay it in here. I'm going to oil and salt it though, if someone can find me my oil. It appears to be missing at the moment. And then do half an hour at that top temperature till this all crackles up a little bit, and then I will lift it and I'll put potatoes underneath it for the kids to have with it. So just need to find the oil, and then yeah, I'll oil and salt it. Something else I need to get done today is the beef yakiniku that I bought. It needs to be marinated so that I can get it in the dehydrator tomorrow. So I'm going to, so it's in these lovely pre-cut pieces with all this fat on them. Which is going to be super tasty as short shelf life jerky. Obviously things with this much fat in it cannot be kept as long shelf life jerky, but our jerky, I don't know, it's weird households that have jerky that has a long shelf life, because we definitely don't have long shelf life jerky here. So all I'm going to do is pull it apart and then I'm going to season it up. I don't know if all of this will fit in the dehydrator, but if it doesn't, then we'll just fry some of it up to eat tomorrow when I fill the dehydrator, or we might have time to run it twice if I get it going early enough. So just going to get this all pulled apart and then I'll season it. All right, so I'm going to be going to salt fairly generously. I ground up some black pepper so that we can do some black pepper. We've got the homemade Worcestershire and a bit of soy sauce as well. And then I've got paprika, and a tiny bit of liquid smoke, and that's all I'm going to do. This beef is so nice and fatty that theoretically the flavours should just shine through with that. So I'm just going to massage this all together. I might put a little bit more in because this is probably a little bit more meat than what I did last night. Those rolls were only about 1.2 kilos and this is 2.2, and I've just sort of seasoned it with the same sort of quantity that I would have done with that roll like I did last time, because that's how I figured it out. So I'm probably going to just do similar amounts again to what I just did on top of this as well, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into a smaller bowl so it fits in the fridge, put a lid on it, and I will hopefully get this done first thing tomorrow morning into the dehydrator. So that's what we're going for. Alrighty, it is Thursday morning. So first task is to get this beef into the dehydrator, and then I will move on. I think the next thing I'll do is roast all the tomatoes for the pizza sauce. Assess those because I haven't even assessed the boxes of those yet. So all I'm going to do is lay these out in a single layer. I'm going to put them really nice and close together though, because I think I've got more beef here than will really comfortably fit. I'm getting it done early enough though that with the length of time it took last time, I might even be able to get a second batch going, though I probably could just leave it in the fridge for tomorrow. It is beef, and our fridge is nice and cold. But we will see how much we manage to get on here. I do want to try a few other things on the dehydrator too though. I'd really like to try some zucchini, because I'm going to grate up a whole lot of zucchini for the freezer, and I'd really like to try some zucchini flour type stuff to do in those instant soups, because I reckon that would be tasty but also be good thickening for soups and stuff like that. So I'd like to try that. We have some apples from last month sitting in the fridge that are a little bit soft, so I was going to turn them into the apple rings that I dehydrate, so that the newer, fresher, crispier apples can go into the fridge and last for the rest of the month, sort of thing. So there is a few things that I'd like to do if I have, it's nice sunny days, there's plenty of power on that side of the house, on that set of solar at the moment, so it should work out. So I'm going to put stuff nice and close together because it shrinks a fair bit, so I'm going to put that in. So this is the Bench Foods dehydrator. I'll show it to you once I got it full, and it was gifted to me to share, so I'm going to also try and do some video type stuff of this to share on social media today too, though I have been really slack and I don't think I've posted on social media in like a month, because I struggle with the fact that when I film all day every day, sometimes it feels like sharing there is like triple sharing, but I do know that it's different audiences who watch the different things, so it's probably just silly of me to not share the same stuff there as well, but we'll see how we go. So I'm just going to fill all 10 trays of this with as much of this meat as possible, and then I'll bring you back to show you the dehydrator. Alright, so I managed to get it all in with one tray spare actually, because I probably overcrowded a little bit, but that's fine, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on for the first hour or whatever and see how it shrinks up, and if there's any really spots that are really too tight, then I'll put that extra tray in it and I'll spread it out a little bit, but I'm going to leave it as is for the moment and let it go and see how it shrinks up. A lot of fat in it, so it should shrink up a fair bit. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to get this turned on. I'm going to put it on 71 degrees and I'm just going to see how it goes, and I'll come back and assess. Next thing is to roast up all these tomatoes. Now these tomatoes have been sitting on my table, not in a fridge or anything, so there's some that have some bad spots in them already, so all I do is I quarter them and just roast them. So I just take the very tip of the core out, throw them all in a tray with a bit of oil and salt, and then get them roasted up, and they can be used to make pizza sauce, or you can even use that pizza sauce type base for a pasta sauce as well, as a base for a pasta sauce. So I find just by roasting them all up, I'll add some onion and some garlic in there as well, get them all roasted, and then just pureeing and canning it works really well as a nice rich tomato base for pizza sauce, pasta sauce, whatever I want to use it for. I do make an actual pasta sauce that I can as well, but I do it with tin tomatoes and a much thinner sort of a thing, so it can be poured straight out of the jar as a pasta sauce. But I will do that later on in the month is the hope, because I did purposely buy a bunch of veggies to be able to do that too. So for the moment I'm just going to fill as many trays as I can up with these tomatoes and get them in the oven to slow roast. Alright, so I filled 2 full trays out of that first box. I did have probably a whole tray worth of waste, unfortunately. It's my own fault. Those boxes are quite a deep box, and if I didn't get them in the fridge, there was, they've got pressure on them, so anything bruised is fine, I just use it, but anything that has any sort of pierced skin, I have to trim away large swathes of the tomato and stuff, and it's fine. The animals will really enjoy the scraps. So I've still got one more box, but I've got these 2 trays done first. And what I do is I tend to cut onion into nice big chunks, and then I stash it in the in the tomato, normally tucked in, because we don't want it, we want it to cook, to roast, but we don't want the onion to burn because it can cause some bitterness in the flavor of the sauce. So we want some color on the tomatoes, but not necessarily on the onion. So now, ratios of onions for canning and stuff like that, there is set ratios of how much you're supposed to use for safety if you're water bath canning and things like that. I can't remember. I think it's a cup of onion per 7 cups of tomato, approximately. I tend to use a large onion or 2 medium onions per tray. These are really big onions though, so I kind of do it by eye, and I know that that's not necessarily the right way, but that's what I do. I can add some citric acid to this at the end if I feel like it needs a little bit of a boost in acidity for canning purposes. I don't have any pH strips at the moment, I don't think. But yeah, so there is guidelines for how much onion and garlic you're supposed to put with tomato products if you're going to can it. I'll see if I can find them and remember to stick the link in, but I probably won't, because we all know that I'm pretty slack at that. But I actually might just use this really big onion as it for these 2, and then one of the other really big ones if I can get another 2 trays in the other one. Can you empty the oven tray, please?
Yeah, the geesies love tomatoes apparently.
Okay.
They were going nuts over it.
All right, so that was a really big onion. It was sort of this size onion, a nice, you know, big handful of an onion in there. I'm going to grab a couple of garlic cloves, and I actually need to do an order for another 5 kilos. I keep on forgetting because these are right at the end of what I've got left. And again, we just want them roasted, so chunks and put in amongst all the tomatoes. Can you turn the oven on for me, please?
How long? As 0?
Yeah. And we just stash all these in like the onion, and then I will do the other tray as well, and then we will, can you put some rice bran oil in my oil sprayer for me, please?
Yeah, I don't think there's any
I bought,
here, so I'll go get it.
there's a rice bran just there on the bench. Someone's put it on the bench.
How much?
All right, so we just gently spray all the top of it. This is just about allowing the tops of the tomatoes to brown up nicely. So that's plenty. Yep, and on the other one. So we just put a nice even coating on the top, just like that. I don't add any herbs other than salt when I'm roasting them, because I can add it later when I puree it into a sauce, but I do generously salt the top of it. And then I will just get this in the oven. This will take a few hours. We like to roast it low and slow so that we get that color on the top and some of that liquid goes out into the bottom, and then we can choose to use that liquid if we want or not. This second box actually looks a whole lot better than the first one. So obviously the first one had one that popped or something, and then it's contaminated the whole box, because this box pretty much looks perfect. I'm sure there'll be some squished ones on the bottom, but bruising doesn't matter. It's only if there's broken skin and mold and stuff that becomes an issue. I won't use it then, but if they're a little bit soft or bruised, then we're roasting them, so it's irrelevant. So this box actually looks really good, which is nice, because they were only $20 boxes, which is really cheap for tomatoes. It's not extraordinarily cheap, but very cheap, especially for this time of the year. And the animals will enjoy the treat of the other one, but I probably lost a third of the box easy in just unusable tomato parts. So I am glad to open this box and see that it's good. Now it is, well, no, I didn't stack them on top of each other on the ute either. They were side by side, and this was the box that was on the bottom stored on the table. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it only takes one bad piece of fruit in a box that can turn the whole box bad. So I'm going to fill another couple of trays, and then hopefully I'll have some leftovers that we can eat I was going to put some aside for my neighbour as well to go with the other veggies that she's collecting, though I don't think she's going to grab them until later this afternoon, and these have been sitting around for a while, so we'll see how we go as I go through the box. I'll put some aside as I'm going that are nice looking eating ones, and I'll make a judgment call then. So I'm just going to find another couple of trays. All right, so a whole lot less wastage this one. I've got 2 full trays. I've still got a bowl and overflow of eating tomatoes, and just what had to be wasted. So this box was a lot better. So what I'm going to do is going to grab that big onion like I did with the last one. I'm just going to cut it into chunks and spread it between pan, grab some garlic and do just exactly the same thing again and get this all into the oven. And then once it's all roasted up, I'll bring you back to show you what it looks like. We're going for some charring on the tomatoes, but not too much. A slow roast to cook some of that liquid out of the tomatoes into the bottom of the pan so that we can thicken the pizza sauce without having to actually add thickness to it, kind of thing. So by adding less liquid into losing some of the water in the tomatoes, that's a good way to thicken it, because these aren't sauce tomatoes, of course. These are just field tomatoes, so they do have a fairly high water content. So losing some of that water is beneficial when you're turning it into a sauce. So as I said, just going to do exactly the same process in these two, get them in the oven. All right, so the tomatoes are done, but we've got some power issues. So it was all bright and sunny, was running the dehydrator, and they were charging the jackery, but the inverter has decided it had enough because it was a bit overcast, wasn't getting quite enough sun. So I'm probably going to just scoop all these into a container and I'll puree them up in the morning so that we don't tax the solar anymore because we have to get the jackery charged and stuff like that. So the whole point is that we've got some color on them. There's some caramelization of bits of like the garlic and stuff like that, some browning of some of the onions. So we've got this mix of flavors. So all that needs to happen now is that I just puree it, and then I basically cook it down to get the air out of it, add any other flavors that I want to add, and I can it as pizza sauce. So I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm just going to scoop this all up. Now, the thing that I was saying about roasting it too is the liquid left behind. So if you have a look, let me see if I can get you to see this. I got a pan behind me, but you'll just have to deal with it. If you pull the solids away, see all the liquid left in the bottom. So what you can do is you can leave that liquid behind and take just the solids, and you'll end up with a bit of a thicker sauce mix. So that's the plan there. I don't have any plans for the liquid. Sometimes I use that tomato water if I'm making bolognese or something. I don't have anything. We're going to do green curry for dinner tonight, so I don't need it for tonight, but sometimes I use it. Otherwise it just gets fed to the animals on their grain and stuff. So, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'll use this, and so I'll scoop all the solids up into a container, and then I will puree it all up tomorrow, bring it back up to temp, put the air out of it, and then I'll can it up. So I've ended up with a 6-quart container of the roasted tomatoes. So I'm just going to put these aside and I'll puree them up in the morning. Like I said, it's getting late anyway. So obviously it's a little bit too full. So I need to get stuff done. So I will, obviously this lid is recessed a bit more than I realized. So I'll have to clean that up, but I'll get this sorted anyway. Took a little bit more liquid out, lid's on now, and we'll just put this aside, get it in the fridge, and I'll sort it out tomorrow. Jerky wise, now as I said, we're having a few power issues, so I've turned it off. Darryl has been eating it already, and it's done, like it's cooked. It's soft. Which is really nice. This is like that fatty biltong that we really enjoy, with the flexible pieces and lots of fat. It's just not something that lasts very long on the shelf when it's like this, but that's fine because we're not intending to store it long term. So it may need to be stored in the fridge, but we will eat this in the next few days, and that's fine too. So turned out really well. It just, it's a little undercooked for jerky. The beef is cooked, but for longevity and storage purposes, it's undercooked, but it looks pretty damn good and it tastes pretty good. So I've just crammed all the jerky into 2 jars. It's very flexible because it's so soft, so it's easy to just jam in. And all I'm going to do is store it in the fridge, and we'll just eat it straight out of the fridge, just like this. And then that way, treat it the same as any other sort of leftover meat. It's well cooked. It's not jerkified as such, but it's well cooked. So, you know, 3-4 days in the fridge being beef, and it'll be fine. So we'll just eat it all in that span of time, which is fine. That we, as I said, we don't do jerky for long term. We do it just as a treat. All right, so I walked inside, had to get my chest done. So what I'm doing now is dinner. We're going to use some of those veggies up for dinner. We're going to do green curry. I've got the roasting trays need to go over to the sink. I've got some rice here, so it's just long grain white rice, and then I put water up to the second knuckle above the rice. I am going to add some coconut milk powder because we're doing a curry. I really like coconut rice, so probably about a cup of coconut milk powder into the rice, and then we're just going to mix it through, and then I'm just going to cook it like normal. I quite often put a tin of coconut cream in at the end as well to make it really like that sticky, gluggy type coconut milk rice, which I really like. So all I do is that and let it cook with the coconut milk powder in there as well. I bring it up to a boil, turn it down to low, let it simmer for 15 minutes, and then it's done. So need a lid for that. There we go. Not a perfect fitting lid, but it doesn't really matter. And we're going to get it on the back burner here and just let that cook. I like to do that first so that it has time to sit after it's cooked before it gets served. I need to find a lighter. Here we go. So, oh, wrong one. There we go. So on high till it comes to a boil, turn it down to low for 15 minutes, and then it's done. And in the meantime, I'll get the other stuff done. I had pulled out one of the bags of chicken breasts to defrost, and it hasn't. Our fridge runs really cold because it's a chest fridge. So it's not overly defrosted, but it'll be fine. I'll cut some of the starting bits that have been defrosted off into pieces. They'll defrost nice and quick while I'm ready to go. So I'm just going to pull the breasts out, cut it into some strip pieces and then into chunks just like that, and I'll let it defrost while I'm then doing the veggies and stuff, and it will be fine. Being that it's in a curry, even if it's slightly frozen, when I throw it in the pot, it's not such a big deal. The texture won't be impacted because the it's cooking in the sauce of a curry, so you know it'll still stay nice and soft and everything. So all I'm going to do is cut up sort of 1.5 kilos, I suppose, maybe, and get that sorted, and then I'll move on to the veggies. Right, chicken diced, the rest put back in the fridge to defrost for tomorrow. My rice is at a boil, so I'm turning that down to low, though that back burner seems to be having an issue on low. Seems to be alright. And clean my boards and everything down. So now I'm just going to let that chicken defrost just a little bit more, and in the meantime cut up some veg. Now the kids like the veg fairly small and doesn't really worry me. We don't overcook it, so it's fine to cater to them in that sense. And I like to use all the stems, as I said, for things like stir fries and curries and stuff. I really like the flavour and the texture in the dishes where it's going to be cooked for a little while, because you want them to soften up. You don't want them too firm. We do like them al dente, but not excessively firm. So all I'm doing is going to dice up a bunch of broccoli. I'll do some cauliflower as well, and I'll probably grab a couple of zucchinis out as well, and just get it all cut up fairly small. If I do enough veggies, Darryl just doesn't even have anything with it. He just has it full of the veggies and meat and curry sauce. But I do have cauliflower rice in the freezer that I can cook up for him, and I've been having just a little bit of rice with mine lately. So it's up to him what he wants to do. Sometimes it depends on how hot I make it too. Sometimes I get a little carried away and the curry ends up a lot hotter than other times. I don't really know how, because I'm using the same brand of curry paste. I think perhaps sometimes it's just the curry paste batches, because I feel like I use the same amount every time I cook, and yet sometimes the kids really complain about how hot it is. So, don't know. But they do have coconut rice and stuff to go with it, so it does dull it down, but no idea. Anyway, so I'm just going to get a whole lot of veg cut up. I always cut heaps and heaps of veg up because it all compresses down, but also it makes for a good leftover green curry. So I'm going to get probably twice this done. I'm going to go and grab a couple of zucchinis too, and then I'll pull my cast iron pot out to get it started. So just grabbed some zucchini out. I like the option of all the different textures. I find that really nice. So this tends to go quite soft and creamy in the curry if I cut it into little cubes, whereas the broccoli and the cauliflower tends to hold its shape more and have more of a bite to it. So I like that, the different textures of all the different greens. So I've just cut up 2 big ones that I'm going to add to my bowl, and then I'll just top the bowl up further with more broccoli and cauliflower till I've got the whole container, like this whole container full of veg, and that should be enough. Right, I go really super simple. Bit of oil in the bottom, heat on. So we've got the heat on, cast iron Dutch oven. This pan's a little bit of a squeeze to fit it all, but it's all compact so much that it's fine. I'm going to, because the chicken's slightly frozen, I'm going to cook that off as my first point of call. So I'm just going to let this get a little bit hot. I'm going to put some salt and pepper on the chicken, just for a little bit of flavour. And I'll grab a wooden spoon, and then we'll just throw this in. Get this cooked off first, and then I'll add the curry paste, because normally cook off the curry paste first, but because the chicken's a little bit frozen, it's going to take just a little bit longer to cook. I don't want to burn the curry paste off on the bottom, so and this is going to let out some water too, so I think better just to get this cooked off, and then I'll add the curry paste. Alright, I've just got the chicken browned off enough that I'm happy that it's defrosted. It's not necessarily cooked all the way through, but it's at a good spot. I'm going to stick the whole of the Maisery green chicken curry in here, because this is going to be for everyone. And I'm going to cook that off for a bit until it smells really nice and fragrant. And then I will add some coconut cream. So I'm just going to let that get nice and hot, smelly. The oils from the curry paste tend to show up at the surface. You can see the slick of the oils and stuff, and that tends to mean that it's cooked off. But normally, you can smell it, and it can make you cough. This is a pretty potent green curry, but it's really, really tasty. The complexities of the flavour of this one are really nice. I used to buy the Valcom one all the time, and it goes on special regularly, but the ratio of what you have to use, the Valcom one's a lot milder. So I have found that I've been reaching for these little tins rather than the jars of Valcom lately. But so once that's cooked off, we're just going to add a whole tin of coconut cream. And then we're going to bring that up to a simmer again till you see the oils from the curry floating on the surface of the liquid. And then we'll add some more coconut cream, a bit of chicken stock probably to create some more liquid, but I've got this entire bowl of veggies and this will create a lot of its own liquid, I find too. So you don't want it too thin at this point, because if you add too much, then once you add the veggies and everything else, it ends up a little bit thin. So I'm just going to wait for this to come up to boil, add veggies, and then we're pretty much done. A couple of other things I forgot. So we've got the 2 tins of coconut cream, a little bit of water to wash out the tins, all those veggies and the chicken. I'm going to add a little drizzle of soy sauce, a generous squeeze of fish sauce. I'm going to grab some lime juice. So we've got a cube of lime juice that will defrost, and a sprinkle of raw sugar. Just a couple of teaspoons worth, maybe not even quite that. And then I'm just going to put a lid on it. If I can find the lid for the pot, just put a lid on it and let those veggies steam through that lime juice, dissolve and things like that, and then come back to it. Thank you. Rice is lovely and fluffy, so that works really well. I might add a bit more coconut cream, I might not, I'm going to test. But we did put 2 tins in the curry, so it probably doesn't need it, but I just really adore coconut rice, so I will make that call, but it's lovely and fluffy anyway, so all good. So I didn't get to finish editing this video last night, which I normally would, and it would already be out this morning. So I'm finishing it this morning, and I've realized that I never actually finished the video. Like, I never stated anywhere that it was to show you dinner ready or that it was the end. So I'm going to, you get me in my dressing gown at the morning. It got down to 3 degrees this morning. So it's been chilly. So that was dinner. I forgot to show you what served up, but all the veggies cooked down, and it's this lovely creamy curry over that coconut rice, and I love the way the rice turns out with that coconut milk powder in there. I just find it leaves it really fluffy and tasty. So that was dinner last night, and everything else was sorted and put away, and then we'll start again. Today is now, because this is future me on past editing. I'm doing well. I think that getting home on the Sunday has really thrown my rhythm off, so we will try and get back into it. We do have a hamper coming next week too, so anyway, sidetracked. This is just the end of this video. So this was the first set of days of food prep, planning and preservation after our 1 month, monthly, 6 weekly, whatever it ends up being, grocery haul. As I said, I'm all over the place. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you on the next one.